Let's bring in staff writer at the Los Angeles Times, Noah Goldberg. He's written extensively about the fires and the people impacted by them. Noah, thanks for stopping with us so early this morning. We appreciate it. Can you speak to the conditions today? I think a lot of people have been concerned over the last 24 hours and the next 24 hours about these winds, which look like, according to meteorologists, will pick up today. What's the forecast there?
Yeah, there's certainly high winds today, not quite as high as we had last week when the fires broke out. They're supposed to be at tops around 70 miles per hour. To give a sense, it was about 100 miles per hour last Tuesday when the fires broke out, but still extremely dangerous Santa Ana winds. And we're still getting these red flag warnings that show that we could have winds that we haven't seen basically in a decade or so. Still, it's not quite as bad as last week. I just remember the winds whipping in a way I'd never experienced before last week. So far, just waking up early this morning, it doesn't seem to be nearly as bad, but it is supposed to pick up throughout the day.
So I have driven through Altadena. You've done what a lot of people are not able to do as a reporter. You've seen with your own eyes the destruction left behind by these fires. Can you describe for our viewers what it's like to be there on the ground?
Yeah, so there are all these evacuation areas that are just covered by a long line of caution tape and are guarded by LAPD as well as the National Guard. And my colleague Sal Hernandez and I were able to drive right past that. And it's very abandoned and ghostly. And it's an incredibly strange scene because you have these burned out structures, blocks and blocks where nothing remains. But just across the street, you'll be able to see, for example, we saw a middle school standing seemingly untouched, the lawn still entirely green, just across from an office park that was entirely burned out. We walked through that office park and we were in what seemed to be a garden area. There was still a koi pond with koi inside of it, and I saw them jump out of the pond. But right next to that was a pond that was entirely dried up. There were little statues that hadn't been touched at all, houses that have been taken completely to the ground that are still smoldering, just like you guys were saying in your last segment. I mean, these embers can burn for a really long time, and that's what firefighters are still working against.
So Noah, talk to us about the plight of the people there. How much of the region is still under evacuation order? And what have you learned about people who have lost their homes or have had to flee their homes? Are hotels overrun, or the shelters, or people seeking refuge with homes? Just talk to us a little bit about that human experience for people who have lost everything or may still lose everything.
There's never been anything like this in Los Angeles my entire life here. The number of people who are out of a home, who are looking for homes, is just incredible and shocking. And everyone who lives in Los Angeles knows someone or knows numerous people, dozens of people who have lost a home and who are currently searching for another place to stay. You have companies like Airbnb offering discounts on places. The hotels are definitely overrun. I spent the first day after the fire broke out last week actually going to the Beverly Hills Hotel, which is an extremely upscale hotel on the west side of Los Angeles. And I talked to people from the Palisades, people who are very well off, who had evacuated, been in those massive traffic jams, and gone to stay at the Beverly Hills Hotel as part of their evacuation. But obviously there are people with less means who are struggling to find family or friends that they can stay with. And, the death toll has risen to 25, but that's expected to grow. I spoke with a woman yesterday whose son has been missing since the fires broke out. He lived in Altadena, and his landlord said that he drove away from the fires, but he's been missing ever since. His mom and the rest of his family haven't heard from him. So even though the fires seem to be a little more contained than they were last week, people are still just sort of coming to terms with the amount of destruction and the human toll that this has taken.
So, Noah, on that score, all the displaced people, all the electeds, from the mayor to the governor, they're getting hammered, probably deservedly on a daily, probably an hourly basis. But is L.A. County or L.A. City, do they have any plans in effect now to help these displaced people, thousands of them, who lost their homes and might never be able to afford rebuilding their own homes?
Well, there are a ton of different things that people can access, whether it's FEMA or the city trying to find extra housing. I know the mayor just opened up another 1,000 or so units for people to move into immediately. So they're definitely trying to do things. There's a lot of federal help coming in as well, but I think just the scale is very hard for the government to deal with at this moment. There are just thousands and thousands of people who've been displaced. So much of it comes to turning to community. I mean, we're seeing so many donations, so many people working all the time just to try to help out their community members. And people are really looking for friends and family to stay with, I think, at this point, and then looking for longer term housing in a rental market that's just skyrocketing right now. Rents are going up as landlords see like an ability to make more money off people who need housing.
Noah, before you go, let me ask you about this new reporting overnight from your paper, the Los Angeles Times. I know it's not your reporting specifically, but the Times reporting that the LA Fire Department did not deploy 1,000 available firefighters or extra engines it had available in advance of the Palisades fire. The department only calling up additional firefighters after the fire was out of control. That's according to the LA Times. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, it's not my reporting, but I think what it shows is that already we're trying to do a post-mortem on this and figure out what exactly went wrong. You see the same thing when people are trying to figure out what exactly were the causes of these fires. It's something that we're not going to know for a long time, but obviously something went extremely wrong when it comes to, fighting these fires and getting them dealt with as quickly as possible. Obviously, there were terrible, terrible weather conditions, but still the responsibility lies with someone. So that's what we're seeing now.
Yeah, obviously there we're talking about preparation. Since then, these firefighters have done absolutely heroic work with almost no break here for over a week now. Los Angeles Times staff writer Noah Goldberg. Noah, thanks so much for your reporting. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Coming up.